Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Our guest today is Joanna Kleinman. Let's talk about your worthiness. Welcome to the show, Joanna.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Alicia.
So, fellow mindset expert,
Yes.
transformation expert, podcast host.
Yes.
So
Jack of all trades.
yes, right. But it's that really important stuff because
Yes.
we're talking about cleaning up that deep rooted subconscious crap, the old mental and emotional conditioning that
Yep.
trips people up and keeps them from having a life and a business that they really truly do love. And now you work predominantly with women, but this is a
Mhm.
topic applicable to everyone.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
let's start a little bit by talking about your business and what you've got going on.
Great.
And then we can get into some of those deeper topics
Love
that I'm
it.
looking
Love
forward
it.
to.
Yeah. So, I am a licensed psychotherapist. So for about 20 years, just, had a private practice in psychotherapy. And I was never a traditional kind of therapist. Um, I always attracted clients that really wanted to grow, right? They wanted to, whatever area of life, whether it was their business or their personal life, they really wanted to get to the next level, right? So as I progressed as a psychotherapist, I just wasn't interested in only working with people to just sort of get them over the hump of feeling better, right? And not that that is very, very necessary, but I really wanted to work with people who were hungry for designing an extraordinary life, an extraordinary relationship with themselves, with their, the people that they love, with their children, loving what they do professionally. And so what I do now has been evolving over the past 4 years. And now it's very, very different than what I used to do. The pandemic afforded me the opportunity to say, okay, I'm closing the doors on my private practice. And I have a whole program called Mastering Your Mind, which I know is something that you talk about frequently. So I have a whole program called Mastering Your Mind. And I do love working with men. I love working with men. My group program is women because I used to do things in person and I would do mixed men and women. And I found that men and women, when we really get down to talking about very intimate stuff, sometimes men prefer to be with men and women prefer to be with women. So that's why, primarily my marketing now is for women, because right now the courses that I'm leading are all for women
So
business owners. Yeah, they're different, women that just want to get to the next level with something.
I love it. And
Yeah.
so you've referenced that you do a lot of work with helping people with like their self-worth, their feeling worthy of their rates, but also just being happy.
Yes.
And I wanted to go there
Yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
this is a serious issue for a lot of people.
Yes, it is.
There's this tendency to feel unworthy,
Uh-huh.
and it gets developed often in childhood from
Yeah.
all of those seemingly innocent things that parents say and do, and how teachers make you feel, and just how society and our peers make us feel. And we
Yes.
come to these erroneous conclusions that we're not worthy or we're not deserving or we're not good enough or whatever. And now here we are as adults and we're trying to create something wonderful for ourselves. And
Yes.
so many people are feeling unworthy of success. They're feeling unworthy of money. They're feeling unworthy of love. They're feeling unworthy of respect.
Yes.
And it would be really beautiful if we could just remove all of that crap from
Mm-hmm.
people. But
Yes.
since there is no magic wand,
Sure
let's
isn't.
let's talk about it. So, first and foremost, I'm curious, when you're working with your clients and they're coming in and they've identified, I want better for myself.
Yes.
How often are you seeing this worthiness thing at some level?
Yeah. Yeah. So I believe that there is not a human being alive that doesn't, in some way, shape, or form, have some version of I'm not enough in some way. Okay. So some people might not identify with unworthy. Okay. You know, I've been in the field of personal growth and development and transformation since 9 years old. I was introduced by my parents. I took it on for myself when I was 19. Okay. So even 5 years ago, okay, before, right, when I was just doing my private practice, I never would have said, I feel unworthy, right? But what there was a pattern that I saw. Okay. I saw it in myself. I saw it in anybody that stepped into my office. Okay. And what the pattern basically is I just need something else to be different. Once this thing, right? Once I get the relationship, once I get the business to the level that I want it to be, once I'm making this amount of money, once I have this amount of clients, once I lose this weight, it could go on and on and on. But there's always something out there that we are conditioned to believe that we need in order to find the fulfillment and the happiness that we're craving. Now, this is for another conversation, but that actually is rooted in our biology. Okay. So we can't escape this. And to your point, Alicia, we can't ever get rid of that root feeling that in some way we're unfulfilled, we're not enough. So the way that I coach the people in my program is that if you can just step back and actually observe that voice, get so intimately familiar with that voice that says, you need to fix something, you need to change something, you need to be better, you need to get to that next level, right? Comparing yourself to, this whomever you think is doing it better. Once we can get so intimately familiar with exactly what that voice says, why does that voice exist? What does it say? When does that voice go off, right? What triggers us? How do we know, right? How do we feel it energetically? How do we see it in our thoughts, our emotions, and our behaviors? Now we've got some power, because now we've got the ability to be able to say, you know what? We can put it right on the palm of our hand. We can say, I see you. You are not me. That's the voice that I call that your inner critic. Some people might call it your ego. Some people, right? There's lots of different names for it. But what I believe is that when we know the difference between that identity that got created when we were very, very little boys and girls, when we know the difference between that false identity and the identity of who we really are, that authentic self, that's when we have the power to create the freedom, the joy, the fulfillment, the satisfaction right now, instead of waiting for an arrival point. And unfortunately, we are conditioned in our culture to think that there's an arrival point.
Entrepreneurs are especially susceptible.
Yes.
Because there is this constant striving for all of these external validators.
Yes.
Even terms like KPI, your key performance indicators, or what is your monthly revenue, in
yes,
in the sales organizations, right? It's have you hit your quota? There's always this never ending drive to accomplish something that once you get there, you find out, oh, got to do it again. It's not enough.
That's right. That's right. That's right. The way that I coach people is very, very different. I don't believe that we should be following this blueprint, right? I actually think that that can cause more stress, more overwhelm, and more chronic dissatisfaction. What I do believe is that when we have, right, it's important for us to have a vision. It's important for us to dream really big, bigger than bigger than we can imagine. But the quality of our life really exists in the moment by moment by moment thoughts, emotions, choices, and behaviors that we're making moment by moment by moment. So many of us, particularly as entrepreneurs or business owners, we're conditioned to think, okay, well, I got to put in these 14-hour days and I got to work my butt off. And again, that's sacrificing your life now for some illusion that if you sacrifice now, you're going to get to this arrival point. And, we see this all over the place. People in our culture that are, I'm going to put you, if you're listening to this, you can't see the air quotes, right? But I'm saying success in air quotes, right? Because they've got the money. They've got a ton of money in the bank, right? They've got the awards, they've got the accolades, they've reached their goals, but they've left a trail of dead bodies along the way. They're divorced. They don't have good relationships with their children. They don't have intimate, close friendships. They don't feel good about themselves. They don't take care of their bodies. They don't take care of their minds. They don't take care of their spirits. And I am not interested in this being a normal, automatic part of our culture anymore. It's not only is it bankrupt, but the thing that most concerns me is that for those of us that are reaching for our goals and we're also raising children, if we don't understand how to feel balanced, fulfilled, at peace, inspired, full of love, with our hearts open while we're living our life, there's a ripple effect to that. It inevitably gets on our partners. It affects our children. And that's a vicious cycle that gets repeated from generation to generation to generation. Right.
I've talked about this a lot already on this podcast and in other episodes. And I'm working right now at the time of recording on a new book that's going to be coming out in early 2023. And in there, I put a lot of emphasis on this, that you cannot create a happy ending if you are miserable on the journey. It doesn't work that way.
No.
You're literally conditioning your mind through
Yes.
that grinding and misery and putting off your happiness and sacrificing your well-being. You're conditioning your mind to feel that way, to think that way, to be that way. And that's not even getting into the metaphysical side of things if we start to get into the law of vibration, the law of attraction. And
Absolutely.
so now here we are, and we achieve the goal because
Yes.
we're focused, and the mind is a powerful thing, and what we're focused on we will create. And
Yes.
so now here you arrive at this
Mhm.
big goal that you've been sacrificing for, striving to achieve,
Yes.
expecting this big payday, not just financially, but emotionally. I'm finally going to feel good. I'm finally going to feel worthy. I'm finally going to feel successful, finally going to be happy and live happily ever after. And you can't.
No.
You
No.
can't.
No. No. I have a client who came to me after she had hit 7 figures in her business and felt completely dead inside. Right? She had worked to hit 7 figures for 10 years, and she finally she hit beyond where she ever thought she could, and instead of feeling elated and full of joy, she felt dead inside. And it's heartbreaking. It's truly heartbreaking. And it is something that has been perpetuated in our culture for far too long.
Well, let's talk about the right way to do it, because
Yeah.
neither of us are saying don't reach for your goals. What we're
Oh, no.
saying is find ways to enjoy the journey.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's more than just enjoying the journey. I absolutely agree with you that that is crucial. But I also think that we have to trust, okay, that as long as we just keep taking actions that are in alignment with those goals, that not only will we reach those goals, we'll probably even surpass those goals, but it's not going to look the way that we envision. And so, you know, we automatically have these self-imposed timelines, right? And so when it's not going according to, right, it's not fast enough, we start to doubt ourselves. We start to have a lot of fear and a lot of worry. We start to get very scattered, right? Okay, well, maybe I'm not taking the right action, and maybe I've got to figure out what else to do because this isn't working, right? In other words, we have a very difficult time trusting the process, and we're gonna, right, if we're leaving it up to what I call our automatic programmed mind, we're gonna worry, 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 worry. And I don't know about you, but I've never made money through worrying. I've never hit a right. My worry has not actually helped me to reach a goal, right? The only way that we ever reach goals is through the actions that we take, right? So we have this worry mind, and if we let it, right, if we let that automatic worry take us down that rabbit hole, it's very, very hard to find fulfillment and joy and peace and freedom. So the way that we do that is by continuing on a daily basis to unhook ourselves from our automatic mind with all of its thoughts and all of its opinions and all of its judgments and all of its should and shouldn'ts and supposed to's and timelines. And how we unhook ourselves is we get so intimately familiar with it that the moment that we spot it, we step back and we choose something else. We choose a different thought that taps us into a different emotion, right? Like gratitude or love or peace or joy, so that we can experience that now, right now, as opposed to, I can't experience joy and peace and fulfillment until my bank account says, X amount of dollars, or I get this many clients, or I've reached this business goal.
Absolutely. That's what I refer to as the inner work.
That's all there is. That's
So
all.
now I want to shift gears just a little bit, because there are oftentimes reasons that we become so darn good at what we do. And many of those reasons include overcoming our own inner critic and doing
Yes.
our own inner work.
Oh, yes.
So, one of the questions that I love to ask my guests is if there is a mindset obstacle that you've personally overcome in
Mhm.
order to get to where you are today that you would be willing to share with us.
Absolutely. So, but I want to just tweak that word overcome, because I don't believe we ever overcome it. So I have a methodology I created. It's called the MIND method. MIND is an acronym. Okay. I'll very quickly, the M step is meet your inner critic. That's knowing so intimately exactly what that voice says. The I step is investigate the indication signs. Those are the emotions and body sensations and behaviors that we exhibit when we are trapped in that automatic mind. The N step is neutralize the never ending message. That never ending message, basically, it's the same message that this voice has been delivering to us since we've been 4 years old. So we've got a 4-year-old version, and we've got a 17-year-old version, and we've got a 35-year-old version, and we've got a now version. And then the D step is design your life. So my never ending message from my automatic mind is that I'm unworthy. I'm unworthy of being loved. I'm unworthy of being chosen. I'm not important, right? I'm not good enough. So it's all under that umbrella. So every single morning, I practice my own mind method. I journal, I meditate, and I write down on paper all that automatic mind says to me, so that I can separate from it, right? So I don't ever talk about overcoming it. That's why, I call, right, the name of my podcast is Dethroning Your Inner Critic. That's also the name of my book. And I chose the word dethroning, not silencing, not getting rid of, not kicking it to the curb. Dethroning in the sense that inner voice is always going to try to get back on the throne of your mind, right? That it's always ever present. Okay. And so the goal is just to continue to recognize, no matter what's going on in your life, whether it's a business goal you didn't meet, it could be a fight you got into with your significant other or your son or your mother or your sister or your brother. It could be a number on the scale that you didn't like, on Monday morning. Whatever it is, when we get triggered into suffering, if we really look deep and we look at the root of what's going on, it's a common thread. It's always going to say, whatever this circumstance is, it's triggering me this much because in some way I'm making this circumstance mean about me, in my case, that I'm unworthy. Right? And that's just the point. It's never the circumstances of our life that cause us to feel the way that we feel. It's always our automatic thoughts and beliefs and stories. And that's the power that we have, to get so intimately familiar with the automatic belief, the automatic story, the core issue that we've been dragging around with us for our whole life. And when we can so clearly see it, that's when the power starts to disintegrate. And that's a beautiful thing, because for those of us that are entrepreneurs, and life doesn't go in the direction, right, that we want it to go, which is about half the time, right? You don't get the sale, something doesn't go your way. That's really where we want to be able to remain, to your point, do the inner work to remain centered and at peace and feeling full of joy and love and fulfillment, even when life doesn't match what our automatic mind expects that it should.
So good. All right, Joanna, you've got to share with our listeners how they can connect with you.
Absolutely. So, my website is dethrowingyourinnercritic.com. My book is available on Amazon or Audible, which is also Dethroning Your Inner Critic. And I have a podcast wherever you listen to podcasts that is also called Dethroning Your Inner Critic.
Thank you so much for being with us, sharing all of your wisdom and encouraging everyone to find that centered place within themselves. I encourage everyone who is interested in going deeper to reach out, connect with you, get your book, and start doing your inner work.
That's right. That's why I wrote the book for people to be able to do the inner work. Thank you, Alicia. It's been a pleasure to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. And thank you also to all of our listeners. You know, we're doing this for you. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.